Hello and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove and I'm joined by a man who's happy to see the end of the US Men's National Team 2018 schedule. His name is Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
You're damn right I am, and hello.
Yes, I mean, I feel the same way. This has definitely been a couple months of let's get to the finish line and see what's next.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah?
I mean, even that pause just then, I feel like is indicative of our current feeling, because we've had games that were bad and we got upset. We've had a couple games in a row that were bad under different coaches where we weren't very optimistic. We were a little bit pessimistic / very critical. This is the first time I feel like both of us, like when that goal went in at the very end against Italy, we both were just sort of like, nah. All right, that seems about right. Like, it was the least I have ever cared about the United States conceding. I genuinely feel that.
That's interesting. Well, part of that, we're going to get into reviewing the game. Like, in my opinion, part of that is the US deserved to concede a lot sooner.
Yeah.
Ethan Horvath is the main reason why we did not. And almost a 0-0 draw for the US away to Italy in Belgium, oddly, would have been far too generous a result. It would have been a lot more than we deserved.
And to be honest, this is maybe, I don't know, I feel weird saying this because I feel like this makes me a bad fan of the U.S. national team, but right now I'm not talking as a fan. At least I'm trying not to. I'm trying to talk as a pundit, a commentator, something like that. And I would say the USA got a corner right, like the 92nd minute thereabout, and I was actively rooting against them to score.
Oh, were you really?
Because I could not take the United States getting a 1-0 win on the road that they probably didn't deserve, and then U.S. Soccer sort of billing it as like great way to wrap it up, and thank you to Dave Sarakin, and the United States continues to fight, and onward and upward. And I feel like that would have frustrated me because it would have put icing on top of a cake that did not deserve icing, and I'll leave it there for fear of expletives.
This is a no icing cake.
It would have been...
You get just a sponge and that's it.
Exactly. Yeah, it would have been a sponge with icing on it, because that's the thing, is it would have allowed U.S. Soccer to kind of paint this whole year as, but still, we won some games, we gave some people some new appearances, and so when the United States didn't score and then Italy scored, it felt like, yeah, that's kind of the way things have been going.
All right, I did not feel the same way, and here's why. So obviously, hopefully, we're going to have a coaching change very soon. I mean, Dave Sarakin's contract expires, and we expect it to be, realistically, Greg Berhalter announced in the next couple of weeks. If we had won this game, even undeservedly, I still think it's still going to be a lot of the same players, right? It's still going to be Christian Pulisic and Aaron Long and Tyler Adams, just to pick a few players at random. I'd much rather, for their confidence, for them to have a win away to Italy, even if unearned. Like, it's better for the program going forward if we don't lose 1-0 to Italy.
I mean, if you paint it from the perspective of the individual players, I wouldn't disagree with you.
And that's who we'll be watching in 2019.
This is true. I really am. I think you're right then. What I am focused on, maybe unfairly, is I know how U.S. Soccer would have tweeted that and covered that and depicted that, and the way they would have chosen to look at these last few games. And I don't think they certainly cannot put on nearly as much of a rosy spin.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely
right
that from the player's perspective, it would have been nice for them to not feel probably more frustrated than we are right now.
And here's the thing, I'll bet you would agree with me that ultimately the players' confidence is more important than what sort of spin U.S. Soccer are allowed to put on it. But the fact that you cared about that, I think, is evidence of how frustrated both you and I and other US fans have become over the last few months with the way US Soccer, essentially the way they've communicated what's going on, which is they haven't really acknowledged the problem. They've kind of still tried to push these games as, hey, these are great games. Everybody go watch them. I mean, Kickoff Series, I think it was called.
Yeah,
right?
it feels a little bit like they've rolled out the same branding and updated the dates for stuff they've done in the past. It just feels like it sort of has been business as usual at U.S. Soccer. Now, given the way the rest of the world has gone, just globally, maybe business as usual isn't the worst thing. It could be a lot worse, but it still feels like this was a missed opportunity from U.S. Soccer. And so to be where we are right now, it definitely feels more frustrating than I expected it to feel this time last year.
And here's my feeling is, obviously, a year of the interim coach is hard. Patience runs out, right?
Yeah.
But also, I think there hasn't been a good alignment of the situation with the team, which is young players, interim coach who doesn't have very much experience as a head coach and doesn't have any experience going up against the likes of Roberto Mancini and Gareth Southgate. But you've scheduled him against the likes of Roberto Mancini is Italy and Gareth Southgate's England and Chiche's Brazil and Colombia. Like, it's almost, you've really put Dave Sarakin and the team in a very bad situation over these last few months. The scheduling hasn't matched the situation.
No, I completely agree. And a couple of things I would say that like you just reminded me of there is, first of all, we keep calling Dave Sarachan the interim manager, lest we forget when he was first appointed, he was
acting head coach.
He was the acting head coach, then he was like the caretaker, then he was officially appointed as the interim manager.
Yeah.
And I think
it was mission creep in many ways.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I know we need to get to the game. I'm sorry to continue us down this road.
I honestly think people are more interested in hearing about the big picture stuff than the game, but we will get to the game.
All right. Well, then this might get a little ranty for a moment here. So forgive me. But first of all, I want to say again, completely agree with what you just said about putting Dave Sarachan and the team in this position to play these teams. Very unfair. But I think if you go back to when he was first named acting head coach, and from there, I think it's all sort of, it paints a picture to me of U.S. soccer still not really knowing what to do, and then not really being able to say that, not being able to kind of be open and honest with people about what's going on with U.S. soccer. And so they have to sort of keep up this front. So you have Sunil Gulati leaving, and then there's the explanation of, well, we can't really hire anybody while we have the old president who's not going to be there anymore, so we need to wait. Okay, that's fine. But you can still be putting things into motion. And it felt like since then, it has been a lot of, oh, no, don't worry, we're doing stuff. Don't worry, we're doing stuff. Yes, Sarachan gets another extension. But we're totally going to change some things. And after the World Cup, but he gets another extension. Mm-hmm. But then we're going to, it just felt like it keeps being, we're definitely working towards things and things are changing while everything kind of stays the same. And so here we are now with, oh, don't worry, everything's changing, except we're not going to hire anybody who's asking about the job because we've already got the person in mind we want. But Dave Sarachan's still here and he's playing against Italy, who have, since they didn't qualify for the World Cup, appointed Roberto Mancini, played young players, played veteran players, hit the ground running, have managed to not get relegated from their Nations League group, which I know sounds like I'm saying something in jest, but I'm really not.
No.
That can you imagine the United States playing in a CONCACAF Champions League against the
Nations League?
Yeah, the Hex opponents. I don't know if we stay in that group right now.
By the way, that happened September 2019.
Oh, goody.
Right?
Oh, goody.
CONCACAF Nations League starts September 2019.
But you take my point, right? Mm-hmm. That this is still against an Italy team who are rebuilding, certainly, but I would rephrase them more so as a retooled Italy.
Yeah.
And if they had their top choice players tonight, they had a few, and they stood out. If they'd had more, this could have been 5-0.
Verratti and Bonucci were the difference in this game. If, for whatever reason, Italy had kept more of the players, if Jorginho was still around,
goodness gracious.
If Chiellini was partnering Bonucci, if Immobile and Insigne were still on the roster, as they were for the previous game against Portugal, this US team could have been in a lot more trouble. Shall we get to the game? We'll talk some more big picture stuff after we talk about the game. I think I mentioned earlier that we defended, right? 5-3-2 was the shape. And I think a lot of people were excited about maybe Pulisic and Sargent being paired up front and all that kind of stuff. I was oddly excited because the 5-3-2 had worked against France when we got that draw before the World Cup.
And I do want to ask you this. I feel like I know the answer, but I'm going to ask anyway. Was there an element of, I think this is the second time I've referenced Tinny Tim from Futurama today, but was there a little bit for you of, you raised my hopes and then dashed them quite expertly, that you saw this lineup, you saw the personnel, you saw the formation, and I feel like Udo Grove were like, ooh, okay, I'm in for this one. I'm excited for this one.
Here's the thing. It kind of is what I asked for after the England game, right? Which is I thought 5-3-2 is going to be a solid defensive shape that will be hard for Italy to play through. And it almost was. It just quite wasn't.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
I do in the sense that it was 1-0, but I'm also aware that Italy had 17 shots.
Yes.
And Ethan Horvath didn't quite stand on his head. It wasn't that level of a game, but definitely had a very good game.
He stood on his feet.
He did.
I think one of the keys to all, we're not going to list all the Horvath saves, but I think one of the keys to most of them is that he didn't go down.
Yep.
He instead shuffled with it, little tiny foot movements, shuffled, but stayed up and stayed big. And a lot of those shots hit his chest or hit his upper body because he basically made himself big. Right?
And
there's some goalkeeper analysis for you, which we are not famed for on the top.
We're not, but I'm going to continue it with. I'll say this, and I hope the goalkeepers that we play against aren't listening. If I am in on goal, if I'm on a breakaway or 1v1 scenario, what I am looking for as an attacker against the goalkeeper is when that goalkeeper does go to ground, when they because they almost always will leave their feet and kind of jump out so they're parallel to the ground, and there's always that second where you can slot the ball underneath them as they jump out like that, if they're not using good technique. And I do think that on a couple occasions tonight, the Italian potential goal scorers, not successfully.
Chiesa in the third minute. This could have been 1-0 in the third minute. There's that ball down the line where Chiesa's got a run on Shaq Moore, and he's in on Horvath, and he does exactly this.
And I think it's because Horvath doesn't go to ground, but he stands up and kind of makes himself big. I think the secondary option after, okay, that pass underneath isn't on is, I'm going to crank this ball. And I think on a couple occasions, Italian players...
Like Jason Statham.
Yeah, exactly. They wound up, they electrocuted themselves, and they shot the ball as hard as they could, or they sacrificed placement for power.
Yeah.
And when Horvath has the positioning he had and the strength he had in the wrists, he can get that ball clear. So I think it was excellent positioning from Ethan Horvath. That is definitely one positive from the night.
I want to say it's the one big positive, because if we're going to bookend the Dave Sarachan era, we started against Portugal. I believe the equalising goal that we conceded was a Horvath disaster.
Yeah. That might have been the last time we saw him too, right?
I can't remember if he's played for the US since or not, but I know he disappeared from the Bruges team for a while. So this was Horvath's comeback game in many
and
ways.
It's a good reminder that with a goalkeeper, one bad game does not a career make.
Yeah, but it nearly unmade.
Yeah. So it's worth remembering. He's now playing in the Champions League, back in good graces, and it seems like has done enough to at least merit maybe another call-up down the road.
Because if you'd asked a couple of days ago, everyone's favourite US goalkeeper is Zach Steffen. Now I really felt there's a three-way fight between Zach Steffen, Brad Guzan, and Ethan Horvath.
I think you're right.
Maybe the one who knows Greg Berhalter the best will get the nod to start with. That might be.
No, I'm sure many other candidates out there will have their own opinions on who should start in goal. It's going to be Zach Steffen.
I actually don't know that. I'm assuming things that probably aren't true.
I mean, I feel like you're adding up numbers to make a number that makes sense. I'll put it that way.
So anyway, this is probably a three-way fight for the US goalkeeper jersey. I want to get into maybe why the 5-3-2 defensive shape looked good on paper in terms of defending, and even looked good in terms of Pulisic underneath Josh Sargent. That's exciting. Maybe we'll see something there. I think I want to ask you, what was the plan and why didn't it quite work? Because we didn't get many attacking chances even on the counter-attack. And we also, as we had so many good points from Horvath, we conceded a lot of chances. They got behind us more than we thought. Why was that?
Sure. I can give you a little bit of informed opinion and a little bit of guess, which is pretty much what we always do.
It should be the tagline for our show, Taylor.
All right, that works then. My guess would be this. As you said, after the England game, they recognized this 4-4-2, whatever formation you want to go with, that being
4-4-2 with the pop-outs.
Yeah, does not work. So we need to be more defensive, and I'm going to guess they were playing for a draw. Maybe you get one on the counterattack. That's fine.
Playing not to get embarrassed is my guess, and hopefully getting one on the counter-attack.
Yeah, and my guess would be then that if you're going back to a formation that you've only done once under Dave Sarachan, that some of the personnel in this squad aren't used to, or at least not used to from a U.S. national team perspective, you're very heavily focused on the defensive coaching in the time between the England game and this game. So I think that maybe explains partially why there wasn't as much in terms of attacking cohesion, because if you're focused on, okay, how do we do the shape? What happens when the ball goes wide? This person goes here, this person slides over. It does feel like maybe there was an element of, okay, but then when we get the ball forward, we've got Pulisic and Sargent, we've got two attacking options, two kind of outlets. That should be enough. We'll break through them. And so, but when you do that, it doesn't really set you up to have any sort of cohesion in the attacking play. So I think that's why maybe there was a breakdown on a number of occasions there. And then if you don't mind me continuing, defensively, I think it was also that then it was, okay, everybody hold shape. We're going to be in a 5-3, but those three midfielders are very central. And yet still, I think as you said on a number of occasions in this game, rewatching it, you could literally drive a truck through them or a train through them. Yeah. That's how far apart they were at the same time.
Well, the three of them were stretched out across the width of the midfield. Or, so this is what, Acosta, Adams and Delgado, or they crowded over to one side to try and put out a problem. And then Italy could very easily switch the ball through Verratti or another midfielder, right? Or Sensi. It was a little too easy to do that. I think, so I have some experience watching a team in a 5-3-2, and it's England at the World Cup in the few months before. The idea is supposed to be that the 5-3 almost becomes a 4-4, right? Where, say, who's left back first half? Shaq Moore. If it's over that side, he can move forward from left wing back, join the midfield, and then suddenly, say, Aaron Long left centre back can basically become left back. And you've got both sides covered in that way, right? And then when Italy are like, oh, that's no good, they've got that covered, you go the other side, Moore can come back, but then Cannon can go out on that side, Carter Vickers can slide over, and then you've got a 4-4.
4-4 with how many in front of them?
2.
See, that's what I think Dave Sarachan was like, no, we're in a 4-4-2 again. We're not doing this.
Right.
Stay back.
But that isn't what happened, right? Because in my opinion, I don't know if this is bad coaching, or just bad instincts from the players. Moore didn't really come out and meet the danger, and Cannon didn't come out and meet the danger. They just stood back in the 5, and then you're left with 3 central midfielders chasing Italian players. They're either too far apart or they're all together and the one side is wide open. The only solution I could see then is that Christian Pulisic or Josh Sargent, probably Pulisic because he's not the striker, he should have then come back and joined that midfield to form a 4 if we're really going to be defensive.
Yeah.
And I don't think he ever did that. He stayed up with Bobby Wood because he's thinking about, I just want to be able to get the ball and go because I'm the counter-attack guy.
Yeah. And I would say, I think everything you've just said to me adds up to nobody knew what they were supposed to do. I don't put that as much on the players. Like, they certainly could have tried to figure some stuff out and make some things work better.
But again, they're teenagers and early 20s. These are not experienced players who have had to problem solve this before and can instinctively do it. I think especially with younger players, they rely on instructions and coaching
100%.
And being told, here's the setup.
And I would agree. But I would say, like, still there's enough. Like, they've played enough games. Like, that should be the foundation for them. Yeah, of like, we're still new to this. Like, we need that good coaching. But at least, like, Tyler Adams, he's played plenty of professional games at this point in his career. And I think it was telling to me that I have to believe if you watch a Red Bulls game where maybe something's not working or this one player keeps getting open, if we see them in the Eastern Conference Final and Miguel Almiron is suddenly consistently dropping into the middle and unmarked, you're going to see Tyler Adams turning and talking to people and trying to work out a solution. Yeah. Certainly, he'll be talking to Chris Armas too. And if you think back to this game, we never really saw that communication amongst any of the players. There was never any, this is clearly not working, which it clearly wasn't. There was never a, you step there, I'll go here, you go there. It was some pointing in the middle of the play.
Yeah.
But we never saw any huddle up. We never saw any sort of conversation about who needs to do what.
I ask this not knowing the answer. Who should it have been?
It's a tough question to answer because of the personnel there and how chopped and changed that lineup was. It probably is Tyler Adams, I think, because he was generally the most central of those 3 midfielders, and he's the one who can then probably best see what's shutting down in terms of the attack, but why they're having trouble breaking things down in the middle and linking up play in the middle. But he's also, as you've experienced yourself, as have I, if you're the linchpin of like transitioning from defense to attack, but also holding the defense together as that defensive midfielder, you're focused on all those responsibilities. It's really difficult to then remove yourself from the physical game and look at it from an out of body experience and be like, okay, but this needs to work and this needs to work. It's really hard.
You're busy chasing around.
Yeah.
And doing stuff,
if you're chasing down and trying to close down yourself, you're not then going to also be like, but where is Will Trapp and all this when he comes on or anything like that.
The other thing I want to talk about is why we look so bad when we finally got the ball.
Yeah.
I remember Acosta, Delgado, and Tyler Adams, all of their passing looked the worst it had ever been. Didn't you figure out the stats? I want to say it wasn't Acosta 12 successful passes out of 20.
Yep. Yeah,
Ooh.
12 out of 20, Delgado 15 out of 24, Pulisic 16 out of 22. U.S. on the whole, 67% pass completion. That is very, very bad. Only 276 passes completed on the night, 778 completed by Italy.
Ooh. I have a theory as to why. I think whenever the US did get the ball and tried to kind of go fast and counter, right? We never seemed to go backwards and try and establish possession. Not least because Italy would step, right? We never had an out ball out wide. No. It was very rare for Shaq Moore on the left and Reggie Cannon on the right to get forward. So that if you can only pass basically to the interior or ahead to Sargent and Pulisic, if you don't have that wide ball, that's a huge problem.
Yeah.
To me, this is a problem with playing wingbacks, is that you only have one wide player, right? That means suddenly you have the possibility of not having a wide option. You cannot spread the play. You're in trouble. Your options are limited.
Especially because, if you look at the way most graphics are listing that lineup, it's listed as a 3-5-2 with the wingbacks in midfield. Oftentimes, you'll see a 3-3 and then the 2 almost, showing how attacking they are. And in reality, and certainly in the case tonight with the U.S., you can just move those 2 way back.
Yes, it was a flat back 5.
So now if you have, say, if Tyler Adams makes a really good defensive play, wins the ball back 35, 40 yards from his own goal, it's generally the case that those 2 wingbacks are 18 yards from their own goal. So suddenly, even if they're bombing forward, they're still 20, 30 yards behind the play. It's going to take them a couple seconds to make up that difference. And by then, Italy are already pressuring. The momentum is gone unless you just try to play it forward where it is. And then it's always going to be central with very few other options.
And if you try and play it backwards to them, you're putting them immediately under pressure because it's a ball backwards. And there's probably an Italy player like Chiesa would already have been on more. You're just putting him in trouble. So I have a lot of sympathy for the midfielders. And that's why I think it's probably the worst game I've ever seen Delgado play ever.
Yep.
I think it's the worst game I've seen Acosta play for the US.
Yep.
It's not the best game I've seen Tyler. Tyler Adams had some of those good, lively, run around, win the ball moments, but he had a lot of stray passes as well.
I'd say he was maybe in the top 3, I would say, in the performances tonight, which isn't saying much. It's
Damning by faint praise?
Yeah, there it is. Or it's like sort of like because everybody else was very bad, being just okay moves him to the top of the list. I want to talk more about what maybe didn't work for the U.S. In sort of their defensive approach, as well as what happened in the goal. But first, I think we need to take a break, calm ourselves down, and talk about today's sponsor, SeatGeek.
Today's show is sponsored by SeatGeek. For people who do not know what we're saying, I've heard this on a lot of podcasts. People don't know it's Seat.
Well, SeatGeek. It's SeatGeek.
SeatGeek. SeatGeek.
I don't know what's unclear about that.
Buying tickets to live events used to be hard work. If you have the SeatGeek app, it is far, far easier.
We're saying the same thing.
You can go through, you can scroll through, you can search, you can find events near you, events far away if you're willing to travel. And then SeatGeek will give you a nice listing of available tickets because they aggregate from all kinds of ticket sites. And they'll give you a sort of traffic light system for whether that is a good price to pay for that ticket or not.
So if you maybe are like done with soccer for a couple days or a couple weeks and you want something else, I would recommend my wife and I and some friends just went and saw Atmosphere here in Richmond. Their opener was a gentleman named Dem Atlas, who you should definitely look up because I feel like he's going to be very big in like a year.
Yeah.
But Atmosphere, it's like the happiest I've ever seen their frontman. So it was a very lively and energetic show.
What's their frontman's name?
Slug.
Slug.
It's Sean something, but he goes by Slug.
All right.
Slug and Ant are the key parts of Atmosphere. Yes, but they're terrific, and it was an excellent show. So if you need maybe just something to take your mind off of the state of the U.S. national team, go watch Atmosphere, put on a great show, and Dem Atlas open for them and put on an equally great show.
It's probably not too late to get MLS playoff tickets.
Also that. You can do that too, if you're still in the mood for soccer.
Yeah. If you're still in the mood for soccer. If you're in the mood for getting $20 off your first SeatGeek ticket purchase,
I always am.
You can do that. You just download the SeatGeek app, you go to the settings tab, you enter the promo code TSS, that's TSS, for $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase. We have done this ad read a lot for SeatGeek. I do know that deal might be changing soon. So if you've been hearing this thinking, yeah, that sounds good, I might do that, now is a good time to do that. Now is a good time to get $20 off by entering TSS in the settings. TSS, the promo code, $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase.
What's the promo code one more time?
I think it's TSS.
There we are. Well done, my friends. So thank you to SeatGeek. SeatGeek.
Not Cooligans. That's it.
Not Cooligans indeed. SeatGeek, life's an event. We've got the tickets. And now, with that kind of moment of happiness out of the way, let's get back to the U.S. Because the other thing that I thought was really interesting...
This is what you've done, UF Soccer. You've made us happier about ad reads than talking about the game.
Yes, that is correct. But the thing that I thought was really interesting upon second viewing is that in reality... We did. It was really fun. Is that the 3-5-2, I think, also actually hurt the U.S. a lot on the evening because... you had Bobby Wood and Josh Sargent together, and I think the idea was, number one, if we counterattack...
Christian Pulisic and Josh Sargent together.
What did I say?
Bobby Wood and Josh Sargent.
Yeah, that didn't make sense. Bobby Wood came on for Josh Sargent. Yeah. Yes, Josh Sargent and Christian Pulisic starting. And I think the idea was we have them up top, we can counter through them, but also that allows us to more effectively cut off passing options through the middle. We can take away some opportunities. Yeah. And what I think it actually ended up doing was if you had just had one striker there, if it was just Bobby Wood,
Or just Josh Sargent.
Or Josh Sargent. You can basically have him standing between where Christian Pulisic and Josh Sargent were.
Yes.
So then there's just one in the middle.
Right?
Exactly. And instead, there was that maybe 5-10 yard gap. And for some players, that wouldn't be enough. For Leonardo Bonucci, it was always enough. And so
this is the same Leonardo Bonucci that chipped it over the entire Manchester United team to hit Cristiano Ronaldo on the run a couple of weeks back, right?
I would say at least 5 times in this game, played a ball from maybe 20 yards within his own half that went through Sargent and Pulisic, but also through that midfield three and found usually Verratti between the midfield line and the defense.
And suddenly just racking up +5 packing stats.
Exactly. That, but also you're racking up concerned expressions on the faces of U.S. players when then they're quote unquote in their shape, and then suddenly with one pass they've all been bypassed.
Yeah.
Half the team has been bypassed.
It's like watching a magic trick. You're like, what? How did he do that?
Yeah. And so I think, how do you do that? Exactly. You never want to be somebody that Job looks down upon, put it that way. But then you've suddenly, the two people that are supposed to be sort of helping you funnel or like push all the Italian pressure out wide are effectively setting it up in a way, because of the way they're set up, that you can then play right through the middle, or you can play wide, or you can play over the top, or you can play short. Is
it fair to say that given the fact that Pulisic has not really played as essentially a striker or a number 10 all that often, and Josh Sargent is relatively inexperienced, much as we love both of them, they weren't that great at cutting out angles.
No, they definitely were not. And again, that's where...
They were not Luis Suarez. Who is one of the best.
Certainly they were not, no. Yeah. But they also, I think, as we said previously, they didn't have much help around them. That there was no leader there in the middle to say, hey, you need to drop off. Don't go running there.
Like You're too far.
Yeah, exactly. It felt like a lot of times we would see, and I mean this time, especially when Bobby Wood came on, we would see that Bobby Wood go sprinting to try to shut somebody down and think he'd cut the angle off. And then because either he didn't have anybody around him or an Italian midfielder had just kind of coasted over and was now 10 yards away but open, you would see him run and then turn around and realize nobody was there and do the kind of waving everybody
Isn't
forward.
Bobby Wood pretty good at it?
Yeah.
Right? So you're essentially seeing the benefits of experience there. Because we don't, honestly, maybe I'm being just too optimistic, but I expect Josh Sargent to be a superior striker to Bobby Wood in the long term.
Yeah.
But I think comparing those two performances in terms of angles, you can just see the guy who's played a bunch of professional soccer and the guy who hasn't.
Yeah,
right?
And just even little...
And you put him up against Leonardo Bonucci.
And Bobby Wood knew how to use his hips on occasion, that he would kind of body off before the ball came in. He knew how to get into a position to at least scrap for that ball. Not to say that Josh Sargent was like just standing around, but you definitely had those moments of like, ooh, yeah, I can see why Bobby Wood is a valuable asset when you're trying to chase people down and put people under pressure and really frustrate opponents trying to play out of the back.
Oh, okay. Do you want to talk about the goal?
I mean, not really, but I will.
All right, so what, 93rd, 94th?
94th.
94th minute, it's Politano. It's part of an Italian move that really does carve the US open and puts it past Horvath, who is the only player probably that deserved a clean sheet.
Yeah, and I think you can see it, maybe, and like Zimmerman as well, I think is equally enthusiastic about getting this draw. So when the ball goes in, those two, really you see the reaction of anger and frustration after 94 minutes of almost getting through it.
So I think we agreed that it wasn't one player's fault.
It's everyone's fault.
It wasn't one player's fault. It is basically everyone's fault. There are multiple missteps in the build-up to this goal. Fair?
Yeah, I mean, I would say this. Like, this doesn't really paint a picture other than to say that, man, Verratti is good. But it's worth noting that the United States... The build-up to this goal starts with the U.S. clearing. I think it's Will Trapp running down a ball that's like going towards the corner flag. He boots it all the way to midfield with his left foot.
It's a nice left-footed style. Actually, I remember sitting here watching it live saying, oh, well done, Will Trapp.
Yep.
Because I think it's kind of a perfectly weighted and perfectly lined clearance.
Yes,
right?
it is.
Until you go back and chase it and collect it.
It is. And again, I want to say, since you already did, Matteo Politano, great goal, but we're going way back in this one because this is
like the first minute, right?
It's like a minute before. Yeah, exactly. I'm going to start with the whole build-up. It's going to be a 95-minute long show.
So the ref blows the whistle.
But it's Trapp clearing this ball, and it's Verratti collecting it around midfield. And it was like, because I knew, like, having already seen the goal live, that I was like, he gets the MLS assist for this one. How does he start this? And he gets that ball. He ends up, pulling in like 4 U.S. players because he's moving around. So he pulls U.S. players out. They end up switching the ball to the left side of the field.
Which, again, is an absolute hallmark of the U.S. defending in the 5-3-2. Pull everybody over to one side, switch the field.
And then I think Italy possessed there for a little bit. And then there's a player, I forget who it is. No, I don't. It's Verratti again, who comes all the way across, gets the ball in the left channel now, turns and plays it back through the middle again, and really hasn't been tracked this whole way. And I say this all just to say that here is... not even arguably, he is the most dangerous player in this Italy team on the evening. And for the U.S. to consistently lose him and not put him under pressure
he's small. He's not
shocking.
that small.
No, he's not.
Shouldn't lose him.
No, and so then he drifts central, and this is where I say that it's everybody's fault because it's Tyler Adams has gone wide to the U.S.'s right side to provide a little bit of cover. He walks back. He's very slow. He doesn't really even try to get back into shape.
He and I believe Shaq Moore is on the right at this side. For about 10 seconds, they're both marking the same player because neither of them have communicated.
And they both aren't even
Emerson
marking. Yeah, but they're both sort of within 10 yards of him, and both are like, yeah, that's what I'm comfortable with. Yeah. So, but then Verratti drifts inside. He gets Too close, I think, for his comfort to Cameron Carter-Vickers. So then Verratti kind of does the very good player thing we've seen where they drift away just a little bit so they find themselves in like 5 to 7 yards of space.
Yep.
But meanwhile, it's U.S. players being slow to pressure out wide. So it's Sebastian Lletget who's come in. He doesn't really step, nor does Will Trapp, who is completely unaware that Verratti is open behind him. And so it's just...
Trapp does his Michael Bradley impression
it's a lot of that.
In terms of just like hop into space and theoretically shut some stuff down, but don't actually apply any pressure to a specific player.
Yeah, and that is... With everything I've said, I feel like I've said that's the most frustrating thing like 6 times. I feel like this might be the most frustrating, is that you can see in the freeze frame, like 5 seconds before the goal happens, how all of the U.S. players think they're in the right position. How everybody is sort of looking around and, I'm close enough, I've cut that off. And it seems like if you hit play, you'll see the Italian players all start moving again. And you'll see the U.S. players just kind of hold that shape. Like, we've done it. There's no way they can find their way through. And it really is the case that Will Trapp, for 1 second, is sort of blocking off Verratti, but I think he doesn't even know that Verratti's there. So he's not doing it on purpose.
Didn't you see him like check his shoulder and look around, but the only place he doesn't look is
right
where
behind him.
Verratti is.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so then Trapp steps to the ball, but steps inside at the same time. That opens up Verratti. Then that passes on. And then
This is from Politano, right?
Yeah.
He starts to move at the top of the box.
He starts to move at the top of the box. And then from that movement on, it's just a lot of U.S. scrambling to try to stay with people. But once you're scrambling to react to the passes, you're no longer being proactive in your marks, your obligations, your positioning. And so then I think it's Sebastian Lletget who just doesn't track Politano because he's focused on everything else that's happening.
Well, I think he kind of sees Politano go into the central defense area and basically assumes, if he goes into that netherworld of defense, like our defensive demons will handle him.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? That's a weird analogy, but he just passes him off the defenders, essentially.
Yeah. But then while that's happening, it is Verratti at the top of the box, and maybe the defense thinks he's going to shoot, so they're all sort of not trying to put him under too much pressure, but they don't want to overcommit. And then he just plays a very clever disguise, like outside of the foot, outside of his right foot pass to Gagliardini. Gagliardini then lays it off to Politano. Politano puts it in the back of the net. 1-0 to Italy. Much to the sadness of Ethan Horvath and Walker Zimmerman, but I would say a very deserved goal and win for Italy.
They celebrated hard
as
well because this was a lot of kids.
Yep.
This was Italy playing their kids. It was Moise Kean, teenager, making his debut. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
They looked really happy afterwards to not be shut out for the second game in a row because Portugal held them, to not be shut out against the United States.
And I have to believe that they were frustrated, not like necessarily by what the U.S. was doing, but by their own inability to find the back of the net.
But Ethan Horvath specifically.
Probably that, yeah. And so I think that also explains some of that celebration of, again, we both played in those games where it just feels like it's never going to happen. It feels like the chances have come and gone, and then you find a way through. And to get that result so late, it definitely would intensify that reaction that much more.
All right, before we move on, there's one player I want to talk about. The one guy I feel like I learned something about tonight is Reggie Cannon. Big fan of Reggie Cannon. Dallas Player of the Year.
Oh boy.
We've been excited about him as a possible US right back. We saw him get done by Emerson
twice,
a couple of times. He got a yellow card the first time where he lunged and caught Emerson. Did it again, and I think the ref just thought, it's a friend, I'll let this go.
I think he more or less said that to the Italian players who came over to protest about not getting a second yellow. Like, I think he did a like shrug, like, what do you want from me? I'm not going to send him off.
Yeah.
And he easily could have. It was a very bad challenge, and more disconcerting is that it was the exact same very bad challenge. It was a sort of...
I think that's why it really stuck out in my mind, is it got repeated. It became that. You were about to describe it, so I'll let you do that.
No, it's okay. Go ahead. Because I was going to say something probably that wasn't quite as helpful as actually describing it.
I would call it basically a lunge, right? Because it's not a slide tackle, but it's not standing him up, and it's not a step. It's almost like you're giving up doing anything else because you thrust your right foot forward and move your left foot back a little bit. So you do it's as if you're doing the splits, but you're not very limber. So you've definitely 100% committed to doing that and nothing else, right?
Well, and
he fouls him both times.
And that's the thing that I found concerning, is that at best, it's Reggie Cannon guessing. Like, it's him just trying to think, like, what do I think he's going to do?
Yeah.
Which means he's not reading the play. He's not reacting defensively.
On the
he's
first
just trying to guess.
Emerson's actually going the other way.
Yep. And he just guesses wrong. And then at worst, it's him just being too slow. It's him not being aware of how to defend a player with that much technical ability.
Yeah.
And
no,
he
not too slow in terms of pace,
in.
too slow in terms of reaction.
Yeah, exactly. In terms of, like, keeping defensive posture enough that then when the time is right, like, I know this is probably overstated or silly, but like it's a little bit like a cobra. It's like you want to keep the shape, and then once that little loose touch, that little gap, then you go for that ball.
Yeah.
And it felt like Reggie Cannon was just like, ball, and just went. And and thus it was 2 free kicks, and it could have been 2 yellow cards that are sending off. Luckily, the Turkish referee was kind on the evening.
Final note, I didn't notice this first time around. I saw a tweet from Matt Doyle who says that one of the things Italy did very well was professionally foul.
Yep.
Anytime the US was about to break, especially through like Pulisic or anyone who had some pace, like say Tyler Adams getting away, they would just like pull shorts, pull jerseys, literally foul in the US half so that break could never happen. Right? Yeah. We can complain about that, but ultimately that's just Italy being very smart and easily nullifying the one thing that the US could have done.
I mean, that's the thing is like you can complain about it, but it's Italy doing exactly what they needed to do to break up the United States' really only threat. That if you know the only way they're going to be like, we're going to look vulnerable is if they catch us on the break. So as soon as it looks like they're breaking, just give them a little shirt pull. If it's a yellow card, it's a yellow card, but it's not a breakaway and a goal.
Yep.
And that the United States really couldn't find a way to deal with that or at least utilize that to their advantage was, again, pretty telling to me.
Other thing that I think a lot of people talked about in this game.
But also good call, Matt Doyle.
We talked about in the preview, Tyler Adams, New York Red Bulls, Aaron Long, New York Red Bulls, both played a lot of minutes in this game, and they have that playoff.
It's the injustice of all time.
So I can understand New York Red Bulls fans being not happy about this. And I remember we talked about it in the preview. I've really come around to just remembering that, oh yeah, everybody else has games this weekend as well.
Yeah, and I saw they do, and I also
Shaq Moore's got a game in Spain, or
this is true.
Other people have games everywhere else.
But I would say like more to the MLS Eastern Conference playoff point is that I saw a lot of tweets that like, oh, you just know that like Joseph Martinez and Miguel Almiron are like rubbing their hands together at the prospect of a tired Tyler Adams and a tired Aaron Long. It's like, no, they won't. They're both playing for their national teams right now because they were. Venezuela, I think Joseph Martinez played 75 minutes against Iran in Qatar. Miguel Almiron played the full 90 against South Africa in South Africa. Okay. It's not like those two were just sitting in Atlanta waiting for this playoff game. As you said, lots of people are playing lots of games around the world. So
both today and this weekend. Yeah.
And if anything, I would say that is a product of the system, and maybe that's where MLS is trying to change some things for next season.
Did you read that story? I
read like 2 paragraphs of it.
It's a Tenorio Athletic article.
Basically, I didn't read it from the Athletic app. I just read it from like clicking through on a Reddit page. So then it wanted me to read it back to the app, and I was like, or I could just watch a video on YouTube.
Oh no, pivoted to video.
I mean, you know.
So I read it. And essentially MLS are looking at maybe getting the playoffs done before this international break in the future. Yeah, so that we don't run into the same problem.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's the nature of the beast right now, such as it is, but I understand why Red Bulls fans would be concerned, especially when there's that one where Adams looked like he had a head-to-head collision.
He did have a head-to-head collision.
Yeah, and that maybe gave some Red Bulls fans a moment of terror. But it seems like he'll be okay. It seems like they'll both be ready to go this Sunday.
Bigger picture US stuff. There was the Grant Wall story in Sports Illustrated. I believe I didn't see it, but he mentioned it. Apparently, he was on the Fox Sports 1 broadcast of this game. That Lopetegui, Julian Lopetegui, had made an approach to US Soccer himself and said, hey, I might be interested in this job thing you got going.
Yep.
I saw it on LinkedIn.
Yeah. How'd that go?
And the US told him we're too deep into the interview process, so it's too late.
This was not good.
You're lost for words.
This was not good for U.S. soccer. We had talked about this before. I promise Daryl didn't just spring this on me, but this is a very bad look for U.S. soccer because
no comment. They told Grant Wall.
No comment. And again, it's I can't even think of an analogy on the fly, but it's the fact that they have. It has been confirmed, not by U.S. Soccer, but by all of the people that we thought they might interview, that there haven't been any interviews with, Tata Martino, with Peter Vermes. I believe it's been confirmed that there was no Tab Ramos interview. There's at least a few more in there.
Oscar Pareja,
I believe. Jesse Marsh, I think they came out and confirmed as well. So to then say, oh no, we're really...
I don't think US Soccer have confirmed. I think other journalists have, but they haven't denied it.
Or those people themselves. Like Peter Vermes, I believe, said, I have not been approached. All that is to say that then for them to say, oh no, we're really deep in the interview process, my response was to basically scream, with who? Who are you too deep interviewing? What that means to me is, no, we've already hired somebody and we've known who it was going to be for months, but we haven't been able to publicly say that. And now we're sort of in trouble because here's this, I would still say very qualified candidate from his time with Spain, who is a very attractive candidate, who has called you and said he wants the job. and is very motivated to prove that he is a good manager and is a good coach and will probably work for cheap. It feels to me like all of those boxes are ticked for him to at least get an interview. That he didn't says, one, they've already decided who they're going to hire, and two, I feel like that decision was made a long time ago.
I think we'll be hearing about the Greg Berhalter hire in the next couple weeks. I wouldn't be so I don't know anything, obviously, but I wouldn't be surprised if we get some sort of tease of an announcement during the playoff games, because of the intertwining of MLS and US soccer, thanks to Soccer United Marketing.
I initially thought for sure that we would get an announcement at halftime of one of the games. I don't know if that would be the case, maybe just because they can't pick which one. But I'm with you that maybe we'll get a tease that...
How about this? An announcement of an announcement. An announcement that there will be a press conference tomorrow or Friday or something like that. And I'm really genuinely just guessing at this stuff.
Yeah, and the conspiracy part of my brain, you know that exists.
That's most of your brain?
Yeah, I like theories. I feel like there have been some stories lately that we've seen. Like had a few people tweet about Tab Ramos potentially getting the U.S. national team job.
I keep seeing people tweet that there are rumors about Tab Ramos, but I can't find the source of the rumors.
And it makes me think that maybe that was a thing that has been leaked, as if to say, oh yeah, we actually are. There's one more person that kind of came out of nowhere that I was like, what? They're talking to this person?
He was in the building anyway, so we asked him to.
Well, it makes me wonder if they're just starting to like leak names, so it sounds like they've been doing a bunch of interviewing and searching, when in reality they know. And again, that's why I say this is a bad look for them that Lopetegui publicly called and confirmed that they said no thanks. Oh boy.
Yeah. Do you want to talk another big picture thing?
No, I just want to cry.
Do you want to have a bigger conversation about the pros and cons of the past year, like what we have learned, what we've maybe missed out on?
I mean, you heard the big sigh a minute ago, right?
I did. After an ad break.
Okay.
Right? We'll also, after the ad break, talk US under-20s, where things look a lot more promising.
All right.
Yeah?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. All right.
Today's show is sponsored by Grip 6. Tighten up, US soccer.
See? Grip 6 makes me happy. I can talk about Grip 6. Similar to SeatGeek. All right. Advertisers.
We spelled out SeatGeek. I'm very aware with my accent it sounds like I'm saying Group 6. So Grip 6, GRIP, the number 6.
There we are.
Grip
well done, my friend.
.com is where you will find, genuinely, my favourite belts in the whole world.
In the whole wide world?
I mean, I haven't searched everywhere, but of the belts I'm aware of, Grip 6 is currently number 1.
I am with you, and the struggle continues. The other day I was looking for my belt, and I thought, my wife is wearing pants that would require a belt, and sure enough, that's where my belt had gone.
She's a belt stealer.
Yes. She's a clothing thief. That's how it goes. Yes.
You should buy her one for Christmas.
Okay, that's not the worst idea. All right. Maybe, I mean, you put me on the spot here. I'm not sure she'll love a belt for Christmas.
I think I could already steal from you.
Yes, exactly.
There are plenty of people out there who would love a belt for Christmas, though, and I think a Grip 6 belt would be a good way to go, because it's not just a regular belt. It's a new kind of belt. It's made in America. It's got the badger teeth that grip on to the webbing, and they do not let go. This belt stays where you put it.
Fun fact, if your wife hasn't listened to the show and doesn't know the whole badger teeth thing, when you ask her if she likes the badger teeth, you'll get a weird look. I did ask her that. I was like, it's like badger teeth, right? She's like, what? It's like what now? But that's because it grips, it holds in place, so you don't have to keep adjusting throughout the day and changing the loop based on what you've eaten or how stressful the U.S. national team has been and how much weight you've lost as a result.
And unlike the US national team, they have a perfect tactical setup that's really tight and nothing slips.
You're good at this.
I'm trying my best. Genuinely, this is I think of this as an American innovation made in Utah, invented in Utah, manufactured in Utah. They don't stamp made in the USA all over it in a sort of big showy way, but it's a very American-made product.
I think it might say it very small on the back of the belt.
Yes.
But I don't know, because usually it just stays buckled and then that's how it stays.
And it's nice and slimline as well, unlike the 50 players that have been called up this cycle.
This is true.
Not saying the players are overweight. I'm saying that's a lot of players.
I do what you meant. Yeah. Another nice thing would be that with the holiday season coming, you can use some TSS discounts to get a various degree of discounts.
Yes, you can. Oh, yeah. Christmas is not the only holiday where you buy gifts.
No.
Yeah, so you go to grip6.com/TSS TSS, grip6.com/TSS, and there you will find the secret codes to get 33% off the 3-pack and to get 20% off an individual belt and buckle. grip6.com/TSS.
And that's GROUP6, is that what you said?
GRIP6.com/TSS.
There we
the
are.
link will be in the show notes.
It sure will. Thank you to Grip6, as always, for sponsoring today's episode and for causing intermittent clothing fights with me and my wife.
You really should get one so you don't have to have the
That's
fight.
probably true.
Okay, so I said we would talk big picture about the past year.
Yeah.
Let's talk big picture about the past year.
Okay.
So it's been a year of having no head coach, right? That's the downside. Everyone's frustrated.
Oh,
we
has
know all
it?
that. We talked about all that at the start. But you can say, like, Josh Sargent made his debut. Christian Pulisic has not that many games. Forget I said that. Weston McKennie's made his debut. Tyler Adams has made his debut.
Yeah.
Aaron Long. Matt Miazzi's got lots of game time. I would argue there are some positives in the fact that this next generation of players, #PlayYourKids, has happened.
Yes.
Right? So why do I feel so bad?
Well, I mean, I think, first off, it's worth noting, that's the exact sentiment that Dave Sarachan expressed in his, we assume, final post-game interview, post-game press conference, where he said, like, we've left the team in a stronger position than it was when I took over, and I feel like we'll make the next coach's job that much easier. So I think you're right to feel...
Because they're not out of contention to qualify for the 2022 World Cup, so
exactly.
they're in a better state.
With a player base that lots of people are booing when they play for their club teams, yeah. But I think you're also justified in feeling like the frustration and sort of down feeling you feel because it's been a year since the failure in Trinidad, and it's been a year for the United States to get it all together, and it feels like we're still sort of treading water at a time when, like I said this earlier in the show, Italy were in a very similar position at the same time the United States were. They're now rebuilding under their permanent manager, or at least who we assume will be their permanent manager come the Euros. And so to see that happening and then to see the U.S. sort of like, yeah, we're still here too.
Yeah.
And I think as the results get worse or like don't improve, it feels a little bit like, kind of, not to steal a line from Taylor Twellman, but like, what are we doing here? Like, it's been a year. We don't really have that coach in place, so we're not necessarily learning from these experiences. I don't know if it is Greg Berhalter if he comes in. Is he going to be like, oh, I saw that like 3-5-2. I'm going to use that and tinker with it because this didn't work? Or is he just going to kind of blow it up and do his own thing?
I think you've triggered it in my head what it is that, yes, the kids have played, right? Loads of minutes. Almost every game has been younger players playing for the US national team, right? Nice low average age on all the teams. But I think the question I have is, how much have they learned, right?
Yeah.
Beyond getting a debut and then playing a few games, playing under someone who is not, a high-end head coach, and they've not been given, I would say, an excellent tactical setup to begin with. Maybe going up against the likes of England and Italy and Brazil and Colombia is not that useful if all you're learning is, oh, Douglas Costa's better than me, and I'm Anthony Robinson. If all you're learning is that this guy's better than me, maybe that's not really a learning curve. Maybe if the thing you learn is you get a coach say, okay, James does this, here's how you deal with it. Maybe that's part of what the learning curve should have been. So maybe playing against this high-end opposition, it's been a missed opportunity to actually learn things about how to go up against those players.
Yeah, that all makes...
I feel right.
That makes total sense. And I think like you're looking at it from a more logical soccer perspective, whereas I may be still approaching it from like a branding outside looking in perspective.
Yeah.
Where
I'm thinking long-term about the program, about the players, about this team.
Oh, I am too. But what I mean to say is that like my frustration has been that you could have, if you had a permanent coach in place with a lot of these games, even if the results went the exact same way, it still is, we're building towards something. And I would assume that even if we lost 4-0 to Colombia or something, that you would come away from that with like, okay, this player learned that and this player responded accordingly. And I guess I feel maybe this is the emotions of the day. But instead, it felt like it was a lot of players today who were sort of like, I guess I'm here.
Today against Italy.
Yeah, it didn't have that feeling of like, oh, you get to put on the U.S. jersey, you get to represent the country, and it's this incredibly exciting moment to go up against the Italian national team. You would expect that to be a thing that like I dreamed about when I was 10 years old, and it didn't feel like it was that today. And I think that's the thing that I miss the most, is that feeling that like you can see on the players' faces of like, this matters. I really care about this. Not to say they didn't care
Because of the interim nature?
Yeah, but I think it just felt sort of like they too are like, okay. Like, well, you could see it when Kellen Acosta came out, that at least it looked to me like he was pretty frustrated by everything that was going on. And he looked sort of like, all right, whatever. Like, I don't feel like dealing with this right now. And to me, that speaks to you're not this isn't going to be the coaching setup in 3 more months, whatever, I'll deal with it. And so when you have that vibe, I feel like, with a national team, it's not a great thing. And then when I see the posters of Christian Pulisic, I'm excited to be here, it's are you though? Because it doesn't really seem like maybe you are.
Another thing, we didn't talk about this on the show, you mentioned this off air, you felt like a lot of these sort of poor decisions and poor touches and nervous touches by the US during this Italy game suggested a team that kind of thought or knew or felt that they were overmatched. And it got me thinking, we've been beat up on so much in the past, especially 6 months, post-World Cup especially, right? Are we worried that with this new group of young players, we've allowed an almost losing mentality to take root, or is that too simplistic?
I mean, I would say, honestly, neither. I would say that it's a thing that's maybe taken root right now because of the status of the national team, the lack of a permanent manager.
Because we're coming towards the end of the party.
Yeah, I think that probably, as with most things, that changes when the new manager comes in. But as I said on the last show when we talked about this, though, that but I do think that U.S. Soccer has shot themselves in the foot a little bit, because if they had appointed Greg Berhalter last season, we're just going to give each other credit for things we already said. You pointed this out. How is it different than where? I mean, other than that the crew are still in Columbus, which is terrific, but you could have appointed him at the end of the Major League Soccer season last season, and it's not that different. Except that if you do it last season, you don't have a year of people kind of getting back into we're still not really where we need to be, we're losing friendlies. And as I said before, it feels like Greg Berhalter taking over, people will be excited, the players will be excited, but I don't think there will be nearly as much patience and there won't be nearly as much enthusiasm about a new manager as there would have been if he had been appointed last January or last December.
Yeah, I want to say you mentioned
and I don't put
this.
that on him. I really don't put that on him.
But you mentioned this a couple of shows ago, and I think you're right, that the public perception of the US is so low now that it shortens the margin of error for Greg Berhalter, right? So we do know there was announced February 2nd, the first game of next year is the USA against Costa Rica in San Jose, California. Okay, that's going to be a January camp game. That's already going to start. They tend to be a bit damp. Yep. Not rain-wise, but you know what I mean? They tend to be not big events. Then you've got the March friendlies and, you know what I mean? A couple bad results. And, his margin for error, and he could be very unpopular very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, if you're winning those January games, even if it's 1-0 or whatever, it's still, I feel like the cynical vibe is going to be that's how those always go. Is this any different? And then even with the March friendlies, it really, I think, will take until the Gold Cup for people to really, or a lot of people to get on board.
But then there's the Gold Cup 2019, which we'll hope to win, obviously. Then CONCACAF Nations League in September 2019. But essentially, Greg Berhalter will not have that much of a run-up.
Yeah.
He won't have time to establish how he wants his team playing before those events come around, and suddenly he could be in trouble if he hasn't got it down. Obviously, I hope he does, but if he hasn't got it down by then we're in trouble once again.
I mean, and I'll be totally honest here and say, from a purely Daryl and I need to be paid to have a living, U.S. Soccer hurts our money, basically. That it used to be the case that U.S. Soccer games, previews and reviews were our bread and butter. That was our biggest downloads because that is what the majority of American fans are looking for, is coverage of the national team.
For every U.S. national team review game, it's flat right now.
It's flat.
It's the same. We could do a show about something completely unrelated. Well, basically the standard downloads. U.S. games are no bigger, or smaller, but no bigger.
Yeah.
And they used to be a lot bigger.
They used to be a lot bigger. They used to be our biggest downloads. And so, that
reflects the level of enthusiasm and interest from U.S. fans, right?
Exactly, yeah. And I say that not just to say, quit messing with my money, U.S. Soccer, but also to say that, I think fans are justified. I think that level of or lack of enthusiasm is warranted because U.S. Soccer hasn't done enough to garner it from the men's side, and I would say from the women's side too, with the history of ill treatment when it comes to the women's national team as well. It's a little better now from what we understand, but it feels like U.S. Soccer isn't doing much to keep the fans aside from, they'll always be fans, so it'll be okay.
Taken for granted.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to move to something a bit more positive.
That's fair.
It's the US Under-20s.
They're giving us hope, a reason for hope, reason for optimism.
The US Under-20s, after storming through the group stage, the first group stage,
we give a plus 37 goal difference. It can only be called storming.
Have now completed the second group stage, and they are top. They beat Costa Rica 4-0. We've already reviewed that game previously. Alex Mendez, very good. Every goal involved his sort of receiving the ball, taking a forward touch. beat Honduras 1-0 in the second group game, finished top of the group, qualified for the U20 World Cup with that first win, qualified for the CONCACAF Under-20 Championship final by winning the second game. They will play Mexico Wednesday night, Thanksgiving Eve, USA Under-20s versus Mexico Under-20s, 7 o'clock, Univision Deportes and CONCACAFGO.com.
Can I tell you how much you, Daryl Grove, love Alex Mendez?
Only I know.
Well, I'll tell you this much. I think a new system I want to establish is the Daryl Grove credit system.
The credit system.
And it's how far Daryl will go back in a sequence before a goal to be like, did you see how when there was the throw-in, he played the pass to the guy who took the throw? If he didn't do that, they couldn't take that throw that much faster. And then 17 passes later, it ends in a goal. I'm just saying it's all him. And it wasn't quite that here, but I did love watching this with you, that you were really focused on Alex Mendez and does he play a role in the goal? And that he did, I feel like was this source of ha-ha, I've solved it.
Well, I want to make sure that I'm not imagining things.
Oh, you're not.
It's evidence of, it's confirming what I think I'm seeing.
If anything, it's confirming the fact that you don't have to go that far back every single time with Alex Mendez.
So it's Ayo Akinola scores the only goal of this game to beat Honduras 1-0 on Monday night. Yeah, on Monday night. It is
meaningless.
A horrible bit of defending from Honduras' number 2. I'm sorry, I don't know his name. He tries to do that.
It's Backy Miss Backiel, I believe it is.
Backy Miss Backiel, yeah. He tries the flying volley backheel clearance.
Yeah.
Catches him on the outside of his foot, and it just rolls into the path of Ayo Akinola. Still a great finish, right? He sort of lasers it into that far corner.
First touch, maybe he takes 2, but it is very much the far corner. It's very well taken. Yep.
The direct ball that ends up going to Ayo Akinola comes from Brandon Savagna, who maybe we haven't talked about enough. He's been very good as literally the number 6, wearing number 6, dropping between the defenders sometimes, between in this case Chris Richards and Matt McKenzie. But doesn't just pass it sideways to either of them. He is strolling out of the back and banging balls all over the place. Big diagonals, nice short passes, right? This sequence starts with a ball to Alex Mendez, number 8 in midfield. He takes one of those great things that is one of the reasons I'm really enthusiastic about Mendez.
I think it's a headed clearance. So to me, it's that much more impressive. I believe it is Chris Richards heads it clear and Mendez collects it off the header. So it's not even a ball into his feet or anything. It's he starts to bring it down in the middle of the field under pressure.
And the same as we saw in the Costa Rica game, it's his first touch, is also a turn, is also away from pressure, and is also forwards. That's what he does. He takes a player out of the play immediately with one touch, basically squares it to Brandon Savagna, who is open, I think, because Mendez has got the ball to him so quickly. Then Savagna can hit that sort of long, not diagonal, right? It's pretty much just a direct ball down the middle that caused panic for Honduras.
It's a ball that I'm going to assume...
And Missy McMidhead back heel did not do well with it.
It's a ball that I'm going to assume Savagna strikes with the outside of his laces, the outside right of his right-footed laces,
that
basically.
Feels right to me.
Because it goes straight but then still sort of spins off. And I think that it's
if it was
spin.
golf, it would be bad. If it was a golf drive, it would be very bad. It's a little bit of a slice,
yeah. But I think it's that little bit of spin that throws off the defender, who's already maybe making a poor decision by going for the back heel, but then the spin makes him misjudge it, and that's why it gets through.
Oh, so a couple of things from this game that we noticed. No Ulysses Yanez, who I'm hoping he is fit to play against Mexico, because I think he's a big threat down the US left side. But one of the new additions for the second group stage, apart from Chris Richards, who looked good from what we saw, Sergino Dest at right back.
I enjoyed everything about Sergino Dest.
Lots of attacking threat, right? He's willing to pull some tricks.
Fine defensively, first of all. That's what you want from an outside back. But then, there was the one that we watched in the second half where he has 200 or 300 players on him, and he's on the touchline. And he does the same, just pullback move 3 times in a row. But each time it's a little different, and enough so that it causes problems. He ends up just earning a simple throw-in. But it's one where I think he could have maybe tried to do too much and got dispossessed, or he maybe could have just tried to be too much of a blunt instrument and turned the ball over or just lost possession. And instead, just that moment of calm and collectedness on the ball under pressure isn't a thing you see, and it's certainly not a thing you see from U.S. national team outside backs.
I agree. In the previous game, he had a double step over that drew people in, then he laid it off wide to, I believe, Akinola. So, there's a lot going on with Sergino Dest down the right. That's a player worth being really excited about. If you're not following his career, he has mostly been playing for Ajax U19s. Recently got moved up to Young Ajax. We play in the Eerste Divisie, the second tier of Dutch football.
Sure.
And I think you said he has made a debut for the Ajax senior team.
I'm going to say, I believe I read that in a scouting report at some point. Okay. That like in one of the international break friendlies when all the players who are still with the Ajax senior team will play a random friendly. I think because so many players were gone, he got caught up to play some minutes in the second half of a friendly with the Ajax senior team.
But definitely a player worth being excited about.
Yeah, I'd say so. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Sebastian Soto was another guy called in. Richards, Dest, and Soto were all called in. Soto doesn't have a goal yet. Quite good at defensive pressure when he's chasing down the opposition. But he had a couple of missed opportunities in this game. There was a header he definitely should have at least put on frame. And there's another one. I think you didn't see it, but I watched this live. I managed to see it. Yeah. Where he's one-on-one with the keeper. Absolutely should have squared it to Sergino Dest. Just blast it straight at the keeper instead. Like a young Italian striker he was.
Or like a youngster who wants to score a goal. Yes. And that's really what I think it looked like to me, was a player who knows, as you just said, like he knows why he's been brought in. He's been brought in to lead that line and score the goals. And I think, especially coming into a team who scored all of the goals they did in the group stage, he probably has this idea of like, I need to justify my place. I need to score some goals. And so then once you miss that first shot, you might think, oh, I got to get on the score sheet. I got to try it again. And then you miss that shot. And then it's something like, oh, I've missed two now. And it becomes a little bit of a quicksand thing. And I feel like that's what we saw in this game, was him really going for it and not getting his reward, having an okay game. But I think it is that youthful frustration of, I've got to get a goal, so I'm going to shoot no matter what.
So a lot of players we're excited about, right? Especially, say, Mendes and Dest.
Yeah.
At what point do we start saying hashtag play your kids? And we're talking about Mendes getting a chance ahead of Tyler Adams.
Well, first of all,
too soon?
Once we have a national team manager,
that's
one. And to be honest, though, like, I'm sorry to go back to this, but like it's a valid question, and it would be a more valid question that we would probably have an answer to if we had a coach for a year or 6 months, because there would already be that familiarity of, okay, this guy can't handle this responsibility. Let me see what other player can. Oh, Alex Mendes has looked really good. Maybe I want to give him a shot in the January camp, or maybe I want to give him a shot in a March friendly or something like that. But because it's going to be, we think, Berhalter coming in January.
I haven't heard that. Have you heard that?
I heard it in a few places. It might have been us about 4.5 minutes ago. But because it's him coming in, he is going to want to look at the whole pool again and kind of like get some people into camp that he hasn't worked with before. And so it does set that inclusion back just a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, there's plenty more Alex Mendes to watch for the U20s. And let's not get ahead of ourselves, right? So there is the CONCACAF Under-20 Championship Final Wednesday night, 7 o'clock, Univision Deportes. I don't think we're going to be able to review it same day, right? Because Thanksgiving stuff going on. But we'll be back.
The Thanksgiving turkey is coming down the chimney?
I'm pretty sure that's what happens.
Cool, yeah.
The Easter elves put it down.
Perfect.
So Sunday we'll be back to review MLS Conference Finals.
Michael Myers stabs it.
To review MLS Conference Final first legs. Copa Libertadores second leg is Saturday night. And that game, the CONCACAF U20 Championship, is Wednesday night. Extra reminder, they've qualified for the U20 World Cup. So next May, we'll be able to watch the U20s. This Tab Ramos, unless he's named senior coach, Alex Mendes, Ulysses Yanez, all these players in the U20 World Cup. Worth watching.
It's worth watching, and it's worth remembering. This is something Travis and I talked about on this week's Top Drawer Soccer. The U17 women's national team has been struggling. They won their first game, but in very unconvincing fashion. They lost to North Korea 3-0 this week. And we talked a little bit on that show about how you want these youth competitions, not even really to win them, but you want these players to learn what it's like to play against the best players in their age group in a major competition, because even if it doesn't go well, it still gives you that experience of like, oh, whoa, knockout round games in a major competition or group stage games in a major competition are very different. And that the United States didn't qualify for these tournaments for so long was a very frustrating thing, and I think has set the program back. That we are now qualifying for these things, on the men's side at least, is a very optimistic sign of what's to come.
And maybe, so the U17's women's, it's against Germany, right? The big game is against Germany, I want to say Wednesday. So I assume they need a result from that to get through to the knockout stage.
They sure do.
For the U20s, I just want to give a bit of a salute to Tavari Ramos. Because we talk so much about watching Dave Sarakin teams and we're not quite sure what the shape is and it doesn't work. Every time we watch the US Under-20 men's team,
it's almost comical.
It's almost comical how much it's a 4-1-4-1 and a 4-3-3 attacking, and everybody seems really well drilled positionally and tactically and knows what the plan is.
Yep.
Sometimes we can quibble with the plan, but everybody knows what the plan is.
Yeah, I would rather quibble with the plan than have no plan at all.
Yeah. Then say, what is the plan?
Exactly.
What are we doing?
Yep. You never want to end a year screaming that one, and I think we've had 2 years in a row ended with that.
So we should definitely wrap this up.
I suppose.
Taylor Rockwell, thank you for taking the time to watch that Italy-USA game and talk to me today.
Thank you for talking to me today, Daryl. Not the other thing.
Listeners, thank you for listening. We will take a break for Thanksgiving, but there's one more show to go. We'll have a show for you on Wednesday afternoon. Maybe we'll do some sort of like what we're thankful for, Thanksgiving special. Also, some listener questions. So we look forward to that, and we will talk to you then.